Hello everyone, good evening. This is Shankar here from T-Hub. We are very happy to have all of you here. Uh, so a quick introduction to all the speakers. We have around four speakers today for session. So we have Mr. Vedanarayana from Razorpay. He's heading the startup and SME practice at Razorpay, which is India's 26th unicorn brand and only India-focused B2B brand. Veda has previously helped build grow multiple digital products across tech, edtech, and online travel as well. He consults with early stage startups on brand building and digital marketing. He is also on the adjunct faculty member at various top B schools, including IIM Bangalore, Indore, and conduct various programs on digital marketing. Welcome Veda to the webinar. Thanks for accepting our request as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shankar, and a big thank you to T-Hub for having me over. Very excited to be here.
Same here. It's a pleasure always, Veda. We have Mr. Ashutosh from Google. He is a graduate from IIT Kharagpur and currently working with Google, focusing on product activation growth for Google ad products. He has worked in digital marketing space for more than 9 years now and helped some of the top gaming and retail companies to growth and retention. He also has an entrepreneur experience in founding a hyperlocal logistics startup and scaling it to multiple geographics. Welcome, Ashutosh, for this webinar. We are glad you have accepted the invitation and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Shankar. Very excited to be here.
Same here, Ashutosh. And we have Mr. Pareen as well. If at all somebody who has attended the first part of this webinar, Pareen was the speaker there. So Pareen is AVP Marketing of WazirX. It's India's largest crypto exchange. He has been an entrepreneur with 3 ventures. He has been a writer for publications like Economic Times. Having learned marketing from some of the best minds in India during his MBA, Pareen has spent almost 12 years as a marketer. He is working on a new framework on marketing called CMO Stack. His newsletter is being read by 1,000+ marketers and startups every week. Thank you, Pareen. Welcome again. It's a glad that you are here for the part 2 as well.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Over to you, Pareen.
So I see there are 69 people. That's a great turnout. I hope everyone's excited. I'm definitely excited. So the topic for today is creating a content juggernaut. All of us know that marketing has changed significantly. Mostly what has happened is people have been moving digital, and all the high growth products, we've seen that they need a real solid content backbone. So, and this backbone, it seems that it's easy to create, but it is not. And distribution is another side of this coin, without which this content is pretty much useless. You can write the best of content, but without distribution, it's not going anywhere, right? So today, what we've done is we've got these two sides of coins with us. Veda from Razorpay is going to talk to us about creating this content juggernaut for your startup. He will delve deep into topics which will have clear takeaways for everyone out here. On the other hand, Ashutosh is going to talk about the distribution side of it, right from paid versus organic to different types of distribution channels, and how each startup can actually utilize what fits best for you, right? So these are the things that we are going to discuss today. The format will be that I'll ask questions to each one of them, and also as audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to post it in chat. We've got some pre-asked questions here with me. I will ask them as and when they fit our format. There are some questions which are very vertical specific. Okay, in the questions that I'm seeing, some of them are really vertical specific, saying how do I do it in edtech. These are the questions that we'll take at the end. But if your question is generic, it appeals to a larger audience. Out of 79 attendees that we have here, we would be very happy to take it up first. So if possible, try and keep your questions so that it applies to everyone and there's some key takeaway for everyone, not just very specific case pertaining to your startup, right? So let's go, and you can keep posting questions in the chat. I'll keep collecting them and asking them as and when they come fit in the flow. right? So let's start. First, what I'll do is I'll get into the core of how each startup can create a content juggernaut for yourself. We've all seen how businesses today are built on content. Inbound marketing has become really, really big. But how do you exactly go about doing this is what we look at, right? So, Veda, for you specifically, I think you were going to talk about genres, different genres of content that every startup should look at, and what are the forms of content for B2B or versus B2C that a startup should look at. Would you like to start with that?
Sure. Thanks, Pareen. That's a very interesting question for sure. And I don't think you can have a one-size-fits-all approach in terms of determining what kind of content pieces will actually work well for your business, for the category in which you operate in. You do need a horses for courses approach. Some level of customization is needed to actually determine what kinds of content, what genres of content will actually work well, will resonate with your prospective and your customers. Depending on the category, the nature of the category, the nature of the brand that you have. Primarily influenced by the nature of the category itself. Now, if you're operating in a category which is fairly nascent, right, where user behavior has not quite been set in, where there is a lot of information asymmetry about the category itself. Let's say, for example, where e-commerce was 10, 15 years ago, right? E-commerce today is a fairly mature category, but 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was very, very nascent. E-commerce 10 years ago is probably where online education is today, right? So if you're selling, say, digital marketing courses online, it's a fairly niche space, right? People don't get it. People will have 10,000 questions on what the course is, how it's going to be delivered, what is the quality of the instructor. People don't have such questions when they're buying a cell phone of the internet, they're buying a OnePlus phone of the internet. They don't have these kinds of questions. Or let's say the space that Razorpay operates in. Razorpay operates in the B2B payment space. It's India's largest brand in the B2B payment space, both for receiving payments, businesses to receive payments, and for businesses to pay out payments, SMEs and startups. But still, it's a very niche space. People have a lot of questions. There is a lot of information asymmetry about the space. So you need to make sure that if you're a marketer who's working for an e-commerce company, the kinds of content that you create don't necessarily need to be very educational, don't necessarily need to be very informative, and you don't necessarily need to lean towards long form content. You can cut to the chase and you can have pithy, engaging, humorous content. That's something that you can over-index on. Whereas if you're operating in one of these categories, you need to make sure that the kinds of content that you create actually are long form, actually are more educational, actually are more informative, and help position your brand as a trustworthy player, as an authority, a domain authority in that particular space, which is also something which is essential. Because if the category is nascent, not just our user behavior patterns not set, there is also a huge trust divide, because people don't trust the brand, not because of the brand inherently they hate the brand or they believe that the brand is a fraudulent company, just because the nature of the category itself is such. If I'm going to learn an online course in digital marketing, I would have a lot of questions. It's not because I don't trust the other person, it's just because this behavior is very nascent, it doesn't come naturally to me. So you need to make sure that you help your prospects bridge this trust divide through your content. That is very essential. That's something, for example, at Razorpay we consciously do. It's not because people don't trust Razorpay. The nature of the category is such. You need to help people cross that trust divide. That certainly is one. So you need to make sure you create content around which are more long form, which help people bridge the trust divide, which are more engagement inducing. All of these become very essential. And the other angle for you to consider, Parveen, and for the audiences here, is if you're, let's say you find yourself in a space which is fairly niche, right? A lot of us find ourselves in these categories, right? Razorpay is in a niche space. We're not in peer-to-peer payments, right? For example, we're not in the same space that a Google Pay is operating in. We are in the B2B payment space. We help businesses, we facilitate businesses to be able to pay. So in such cases, just creating content related to what your user search demand patterns are, which are directly aligned with your category and business, is sometimes not enough. We have somebody from Google right here in our forum. So the keyword search volume for payment gateway as a keyword or for business banking as a keyword is fairly limited in India. So if I just keep creating content focused on these keyword pools, my catchment area is going to be fairly limited. I'm going after a very small pool of customers. So my brand doesn't get exposure to a larger pool. So what do? I go beyond my comfort zone. I create content which helps me gain access to a larger set of eyeballs, a larger share of the entire prospective universe, and potentially a larger catchment area. So, but still relevant for my target consumers. Who's my target consumer? Entrepreneurs, founders, product heads, technology heads, developers. These are my target consumers. But one recurring theme is entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship as a keyword pool has significantly higher keyword demand than payment gateway or business banking have. So, but it's not relevant to my business. I operate in the payment space, but I still create products for entrepreneurs. It is relevant for my target customer. So I still create content around entrepreneurship, which gives my brand Razorpay exposure to a larger audience set, helps them, help seed awareness to that prospect universe, help them be injected into my prospect funnel, and over a period of time, I engage and nurture them again through engaging and nurturing informational content and convert them into paying customers. So that again is very essential, especially if you're operating in a category, and some categories could be such. The nature of the category is such, right? E-commerce is where it is today because thanks to the billions of dollars that Flipkarts and the Amazons of the world have pumped into the Indian economy. But not all categories would have a similar level of maturity. So if you're operating in such a category, which is fairly niche, where there is not enough user behavior patterns which have been set, then you create content not just for keyword categories or keyword pools which are immediately allied to your business, but you also create content for keyword pools which have a larger catchment area, larger user demand patterns, which are slightly neighboring to the space you operate in, but still relevant for your target customers.
Right. So what you're saying is maybe your customers are not going to Google and typing digital payments.
Yeah.
But those same people, the same target audience,
absolutely
typing something else. And if you target that keyword, you automatically have their attention.
Just building on that, Parveen, exactly. So all of my prospective customers, right? They are wannabe entrepreneurs, first-time entrepreneurs. They form a significant chunk of the SME entrepreneur persona that we at Razorpay essentially are selling to. A lot of them don't necessarily have very strong levels of financial literacy. They don't understand the basics, building blocks of finance. A lot of them don't know how to read a P&L. A lot of them don't know how to read a balance sheet. A lot of them don't understand compliance and GST really well. A lot of them don't understand digital brand building. They don't understand how do you build a digital brand? How does digital marketing work? What are some of the nuts and bolts of digital marketing? How do I build my social media strategy? How do I build a content marketing strategy? How do I grow my own personal brand if I'm operating as a freelancer? Freelancers, again, form a significant chunk of our target consumer persona. Now, none of these have anything to do with payments, the space that Razorpay operates in. But all of these are relevant for my target customer persona. And all of these are questions in their mind. So I want to make sure that I address those questions.
Okay. That sounds really great. I think most of us end up creating content which we think will lead to sales. But one thing that you mentioned was interesting, that you build your authority as a brand instead of just looking at inbound sales. That is a great thing that we generally overlook, right? One of the things that I think you specialize anyway is creating content or looking after how startups create content and SMEs. Versus large brands. Of course, I understand that large brands have a lot of bandwidth. They have a great team and also money for distribution. But from an SME and startup perspective, do you think is there something different they should do from a content perspective?
So from an SME and a startup perspective versus a large multinational company, as I said, one of the biggest things that they need to over-index on, and this again, the level of over-indexation would vary depending on the nature of the category in which you operate in. But if I were to possibly apply a large brushstroke here, one thing that I would state is that you do need to over-index and create content which helps people bridge that trust divide. I think that is something which is very essential. You've got to make sure that you over-index on content which can help people trust you, help people take you seriously, help people look at you as a domain authority, as a fountain of knowledge in that space that you operate in. And you could look at various forms of content. It could be infographics, it could be customer testimonial videos. All of these are great pieces of content which can help build a lot of trust towards your prospects, and while at the same time engaging and nurturing them. Let me give you an example. When I was with Healthify Me, prior to my adventure at Razorpay, I used to lead marketing there. Healthify Me, for those of you who are unaware, is today India's leading health and fitness mobile app. It's a freemium app. Calorie counting is free. Personalized diet, fitness, and yoga plans are premium services which are paid for. Now, in this particular case, one of the things that we used to consciously be aware of is the fact that as a brand, we wouldn't do any selling ourselves. We wouldn't create content that directly talk about who we are, why we're so great. we used to let our customers have authentic retellings of the kind of life transformation stories they've been through. We've enabled a 45-something working professional who's gained a lot of weight due to a sedentary lifestyle and who's possibly got hypertension and diabetes and overcome that as well using the Healthify app. Using the Healthify app, this person has lost that extra body fat, has overcome hypertension and diabetes. There is a 30-something young mother who has overcome her post-pregnancy fat gain, and she's lost weight and she's rediscovered a healthier and fitter and more confident version of herself. We have a 20-something young man from Bangalore who's got a six-pack ab and muscled up, right? So we have these kinds of authentic retellings of life transformation stories that our customers have been through. We put that out as customer testimonial content, and that was a great piece of content which used to drive a lot of engagement for us, because this is not a brand which is doing the talking. This is my customer having an authentic retelling of their life transformation stories. This is exactly, and different brands have different approaches for this. For example, this is exactly opposite to the strategy which is actually taken by a cult fit. If you think about cult fit, for example, if you look at it, all of their communication has people who already are very good looking, or they have ambassadors who already look like Hrithik Roshan and a lot of these other people who already look like Greek gods, who come in and talk about health and fitness. Whereas at Healthify, we had the opposite approach, wherein we had real people like you and me. Not to say that you're bad looking, Parveen, you look very handsome. Common looking people like you and me, coming forward and having authentic retellings of the kind of transformation stories they've been through, which is very relatable. So I'm not trying to say cult strategy is wrong, Healthify strategy is right. I'm just saying that you need to think through these aspects when you're actually creating content for your prospective customers.
I think more relevant to our audience is, not everyone has cult fits marketing budget to go hire Hrithik Roshan, right? So till the time when a startup gets to that level, at least they got to start creating. And what you said, I think, makes a lot more sense, because from my perspective, what you're doing is you are enabling your community to create content for you, and you're giving them that reach through your own official channels, right? So what better than your community going out, because these videos are not recorded by you, or they are not ads by an agency, right? So I think for a startup community that creates content is also really important.
Just to that same topic, we used to consciously love the fact that if the videos appeared unscripted, and they were natural, and not having that veneer of sophistication, which made it look like an advertisement, that actually worked well for us, because we felt that increase the levels of relatability for that piece of communication.
That sounds like a really great strategy.
Plus, of course, the other point, just to round off what I was saying around trust, the other way in which you could potentially build trust, and this is a creative approach that we had used in some of my previous organizations, both at Healthify and at Simply Learn, where I used to take care of marketing, is we used to leverage this holy marriage between social media and PR really well. So if you're a young startup, and if you say you want to get a lot of earned media for yourself, and I know my friend Ashutosh is going to be talking about earned media later today. I don't want to steal his thunder, but if you are a young startup who's looking to gain press coverage and you want to be taken seriously by media, a lot of media folks don't take you seriously because you're a completely unknown player, right? They don't trust you. They don't give credibility to the data that you have if you say this is my data. So one of the things that you could consciously work on, and this is something that we did successfully in a couple of my previous startup adventures, is you could crowdsource a lot of information around a particular topic. So for example, at Simply Learn, we used to run something called as a career wish at the start of every new year, hashtag that particular year number, 2016, 2017, whatever it is, 2015, career wish. And we used to crowdsource from the Twitter RT what were their career aspirations for the year, for the upcoming new year. At Healthify, we used to crowdsource information. We have, obviously, New Year is a time when health and fitness resolutions peak, right? So we used to crowdsource information on what are people's New Year resolutions for the upcoming new year, right? For example, at Razorpay, we would crowdsource ideas on how you can hashtag unlock growth in the post-pandemic new world order. The pandemic has affected all businesses, right? In the new world order, in the post-pandemic new world order, how do you hashtag unlock growth? What are your hashtag career growth plans for the year 2016? What are your hashtag New Year fitness resolutions, health and fitness resolutions for the new year? We used to crowdsource a lot of this information, package that into an infographic, which is graphically designed information which is presented in an engaging fashion, and then we used to send it to media. If I had to say that this is my data, the media won't consider it to be trustworthy. But I'm saying that this is not me speaking. This is what the Twitter users are saying. This is what India is saying on social media. Now you could use. Now I'm giving this to you on a platter. Now take this up, use it. Just give me credits back. That's a great way for you to create earned media again, and a wonderful piece of content.
Really authoritative. I think that actually brings me to my last question, which is how do you think content creation or messaging has changed post the pandemic? Once it's hit, now everyone is a digital creator, right? But now, as a content creator or as a marketer, when we look at planning our content, do you think we have to make some changes post pandemic, apart from, of course, all the cosmetics and disclaimers and all of that?
I think you've got to make sure that what has the pandemic what's really changed because of the pandemic? What has fundamentally changed is the customer demographic patterns have changed, and some of the need states of customers have changed. And as long as your content speaks to that, you're doing well. So, for example, at Razorpay, one thing that we've noticed is that we are seeing, because of the pandemic, a lot of new businesses come on board who are from tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4 as well. We're seeing a huge acceleration of digital adoption and new businesses embracing the digital bandwagon, who are from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 and below, not just from the Bangalore's and the Hyderabad's and the Delhi's, the Mumbai's, the Chennai's of the country. They're also coming from a lot of tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. So we need to make sure that we have content which speaks to this demographic profile. We also have local vernacular content which speaks to this demographic profile. We are seeing a lot of entrepreneurs come on board who have no awareness of technology, who don't know anything about coding, but still want to use digital payments. Right? So, and they don't necessarily have the luxury of having a developer on standby who can integrate the payment gateway for them. Right? So, which is why we've launched these few of what we call #no-code products, which can literally, entrepreneurs who have no coding awareness can start using them in under 5 minutes, because there is no hassle of integration. You can start using them in 4 minutes, 32 seconds. And we ran specific pieces of content which talks about this, which celebrates the fact that these are essentially a lot more egalitarian and are democratizing access to payments, because you don't need to have that prerequisite knowledge of technology or coding to use it. Now it's open to all. You don't know anything about coding, but you still want to use digital payments, you can still use that at Razorpay. So those are pieces of content that we've been consistently creating as well. Payment links, payment pages, payment buttons, which are essentially these no-code products. So the way I would answer that question, Parveen, is as long as you can create content which speak to these changing need states of your target customers, which have been brought about because of the pandemic. And I just give you some examples of how at Razorpay we've been responding to those changes. You should be all right.
So I think that's a great takeaway as well. To get an idea of what you said is basically don't look at pandemic as one big change. Just understand how it affects your demographics.
Correct.
And I think, of course, depending on industry, depending on location, geography, everyone might have been hit in a different way.
Yeah.
If we can change our strategy according to that, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
So, wow, that's great. I think from a content side, we've got some bird's eye view of what we can do. Now all of this content boils down to the fact that there needs to be distribution, right? When I talk to marketers, one of the most interesting thing that I notice is virality is still taken for granted. Most of the marketers say, I will get the best content, the funniest content, and get distribution. But that doesn't work out these days. I mean, most algorithms have been designed to not promote virality. I'm sorry. Not to say Google, but mostly social media, which promotes virality, has completely changed their algorithms in past few years, right? Everyone, including the biggest influencers, have to rely on some distribution channel, and that's where I think Ashutosh comes in. I'm really sorry. The most important distinction in distribution is paid versus organic. So that would be the first thing that Ashutosh we would like to really understand. How does a startup really allocate their efforts, money, or focus, or whether it's towards paid or organic?
Yeah, thanks, Parin. I think, I think before we discuss paid versus organic, I think one thing which, I would say is many of them, I have seen many marketers doing this mistake is that in the when they are planning their content, or when they are planning their distribution, they start with whether we should do paid or whether we should go organic. I think instead of thinking paid versus organic, we should think in more fundamental ways. And I think it boils down to three questions. who are our customers, what they are looking for, and where they are. Because and I think like Wade quietly rightly said a couple of points which resonated very well with me. It is very important to understand who are your customers, and you need to tune your content according to them. And then the second point you need to understand is that what they are looking for. Like sometimes what happens is that like instead of solving their real need, we solve our business need. Like let's say, as Wade mentioned, that someone who is coming like who has started business for the first time, and so like from the, like take the example of LedgerPay. They said that they want business payment, but they don't know anything. So maybe LedgerPay can handle in that journey. So it's important to understand like what your customer is looking for at which stage, and you need to do like obviously you need to prepare the content accordingly. Now coming back to the point where they are, it's very like I see a lot of people doing this mistake, that where your customers are, and if you understand where your customers are and what they are doing, you can just join their journey within that to make your content viral, or to make your content getting distributed very effectively. And I will just give an example which I noticed recently in EdTech. So if you look at like Baizu, no, see, like Unacademy, Baizu, all of them are offering civil services coaching. Okay, and okay, and I think they are trying to establish themselves in the market, because obviously they are so well established branded player in that market. But like if you look at, like I just was just like because one of my very close friend is preparing for civil services, so he was just searching few terms, and luckily he was sitting behind me and he was searching certain questions, and I saw that for each and every question, Baiju's link was the first one. Like Baiju is not selling them classes, Baiju is not selling them like it's not telling them that you should join their coaching. Like he was searching for certain questions, and Baiju's link is on the top. Now now like my friend was like, now like my friends told me that, oh, it looks like these guys know their stuff. Now think of the think of the way you have created a brand in that person's mind. So I think that's really important for us to understand that, like, where your customers are and what they are looking for, and use that channel to distribute your content. And sometimes it's important that the content which you are distributing, it might not be the exact content which will lead to your business, but because that content can help you in creating a brand, and that can help in generating the trust, then in the next iteration you can push your business to your customer. Now coming back to the paid versus organic, I personally feel like like I don't think that we should do distinction between them. It all depends on the budget and how the budget and how effective you want to reach to your customers. But definitely for many startups, I think they usually have less marketing budget. So like what I would suggest to them is, like, they should start sort of understanding different channels, and they should start figuring out like how effectively those channels can how effectively they can utilize those channels, and which channels are forming their users journey. So like, and the thing is, like, you need to take a very holistic view on this. And so like, first of all, you have social media. Second, then you have paid digital marketing channels. And the third, I would say, you have lots of platforms which in itself are becoming which in itself are becoming a distribution channel. And let's take example of Quora and Medium. Okay. So like, I would suggest that, like, take a step back, think about your user journey, think about the questions which they are looking for, and think about which of the channels resonates well with your user, and then use those channels to distribute your content. It can be paid or it can be organic. It doesn't matter that way. But definitely one thing which I would say is, like, whenever you are doing paid marketing, it means you are spending money in that. Okay. So you need to sort of make sure that your organic content strategy is also aligned with that. So let's say you are running a paid campaign for certain product. Okay. If your organic content is not ready to support that product, what do I mean by that? Is, like if all of your content pages are not ready, they don't have the full information about that. Okay. And second thing, all the other organic channels which you have been using, whether it's your blog, whether it's your Medium post, whether it's your Quora post, or whether it's your, like, let's say Facebook page post, all of them should be aligned with what products or what the campaigns you are running, so that it creates a blast, like, so that what happens is, like, you are getting best out of your spend on the paid marketing. So I think like that's a very fundamental way, I would say we should think about it, instead of just starting with paid versus organic. Maybe I think we should think in terms of user journey, where your users are, which channels form that, are part of that user journey, and then how effectively we can reach, we can reach to those channels or distribute within those channels.
Okay, I think what you said is really true, because the fundamental question is, how do we decide whether paid or organic? Budget is what people usually look at, right? If a startup has a lot of funding, they go out and they acquire inorganic users, have pressure target. But of course, if their organic content doesn't really support their credibility, then this is not going to work.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really
Also, I would say, like, yeah, just to add on that point, also I would say, like, even if you have budget, just don't think that you can spend money and your paid will work. Like,
Right.
I think I would say that's a fallacy. That's a wrong thought, I would say. I would suggest is, like, before thinking of paid versus organic, like, and let's say you have budget and you decided that you want to spend money on certain paid product,
Right.
figure out whether that channel forms your, like, or that channel is a part of your user journey or not. Like, I have seen a lot of startup burning a lot of budget, getting very less ROI on certain paid products, because they chose the wrong chose the wrong channel. So it's really important to understand that point.
That sounds really interesting. I think there is one follow-up question on this. Ritu says, could you elaborate on user journey, what exactly it is, and how does one define it? I think this is a question that a lot of audience might have on their mind. So it's nice to just elaborate on that, if you can.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, and when I say user journey, I think one thing which is really important, like I see, is like when we are developing product, we are trying to we are trying to solve certain problems for our users. Okay, and now one thing and one mistake which we do in general is, like who are our users? And I think sometimes what happens, I have seen that many of many companies not spend enough time, or many startups not spend enough time to understanding who exactly are the users. Okay. And then the second point is, like, let's say you have identified who exactly are your users, then the second point, you need to understand what do they do on a day-to-day basis. Okay. And let me give an example of, from my current job, Google Ads. Okay. So if you think from Google Ads perspective, you can just say that, any person who is doing marketing is a Google Ads customer, because he's spending money on Google Ads. But if you deep dive a little bit, we have different personas of Google Ads users. So we have a lot of advertisement agency who are using our product. We have very small business teams, small companies or SMBs who are using Google Ads product. Third, you can say you have larger companies who are using Google Ads product for their marketing. Now, these three types of users spend their time very differently compared to each other. Okay. So when I say user journey, we need to understand is how these people are spending their time. Okay. And then where they are interacting on an ongoing basis. Okay. And we need to understand, if you are able to understand that where they are interacting with your product, or like in a day-to-day basis, which of the other channels which they are interacting on a day-to-day basis, I think that forms, in my opinion, your user journey. And then it's important for you to make sure that your content are being sort of distributed on those channels. So let's say if you realize that there is a blog, or there is a website which is quite popular with agency folks, in taking the Google Ads example. So maybe, like, you need to create certain content related to agency folks, and make sure that you are using that website or that blog to distribute that. Similarly, let's say you realize that there is a newsletter which is quite popular with internal marketers. So maybe what you need to do, you need to reach out to that newsletter and create certain content for that. And for the smaller businesses, there is no structured way to reach out to them, because they are distributed across the globe. They are, and many a times they are exactly not looking for like marketing related help. So maybe a paid campaign, or or maybe like a different kind of initiative, or maybe like you organize an event for smaller businesses,
Right.
where you understand their problem and try to sort of give them some idea about about your product. So that's the way I would think about the user journey, that where your users are spending your day-to-day time, okay, and then make sure that you are sort of putting your content in front of them in their day-to-day process.
Okay, got it. I think so. The leading question actually to this is that there are you talked about types of distribution channels. So I think most of us must be wondering, now that we know how to identify user journey and then go and select channels accordingly. So today the biggest problem is there are just way too many networks for paid advertising, way too many platforms for even organic traffic. So how do you even make sense of these distribution channels? Is there some categories, something that you can tell us?
So what I would suggest is, like obviously, like it depends a lot of like it depends a lot on your type of business, of the category in which you're working with, which will work best. But what I would suggest is, like especially when you are a small team, when you're a startup, when you don't have like when you are doing multiple things together. So the way I think about it is, like I usually feel that what we should do is, like we should list down all the possible channels, okay, and then figure out, I would say, top 2 or top 3 where you feel are most important for your user, okay. And then make sure that you are you are sort of present there 100% of the time, and making sure that whatever content you are generating for those 3 you know uh, those top 3 channels are top mark, and they create your brand in itself, okay. And one thing, like Wade had mentioned, that paid versus like organic, paid versus earned. So one thing which is really important for us to understand is that your content, like when you are developing a content for one platform, it is just not limited to that platform itself. So let's say if you're writing a blog post on Medium, okay, that blog post can also get shared over Facebook also, and that blog post can also get shared over Twitter, okay, or like any other platform. People can email that blog post to your friends and family, or anyone. So for that matter, it is really important that like whenever you are developing a content, you make sure that you may, like first of all, obviously content is important, to make sure that the content is perfect. The second point which I would say is that make sure that towards the end, like put a call out in a way that which prompts user to share it to their friends and family, okay. So that way what happens is that though you are spending time on creating content for one channel, but what's happening is that it is getting distributed across other different channels also.
That sounds like a great advice. One of the things that that caught my mind is, I think we discussed last time, was earned media creation. Right? This is something that not many marketers even today know about.
Yeah.
People who are even working in digital space haven't really heard the term earned media creation. So if you could just shed some light on this.
Yeah, definitely. I think so organic and paid is pretty intuitive. Like organic is something where people, like you're not spending money, but people are searching and your content is getting on top. Paid is something which you are paying.
Yeah.
Earned is becoming really relevant these days. Okay, so like earned is something which like your customers or anyone who is consuming your content is sharing sharing them on their like on their media channels. Okay, so let's think in that way, that if if you can make your customer ambassador of your brand. Okay, and I think if you think from the marketing goal perspective, I think that's the biggest goal, that you want to make your customer your ambassador. Okay, and once they become your ambassador, they themselves will go and promote this. And I think that's like marketing 101. Everyone understands that, everyone knows that. So similarly, like what happens if your customers start sharing your content or start creating the content for yourself, for you. So sharing is definitely, it's pretty intuitive. You that whatever content you have created, they are interested, people are happy with that, and they are resharing, retweeting that. Okay, so sometimes what happens that people get inspired by your content and start creating your own content, start improvising over that content, or start creating that content. Okay, like someone can start creating meme, like in a positive way. I won't hope, like it's not like, it should not be a meme like IRCTC ones, but definitely more in a positive note. And they start sharing this on their platform. And I think that is what, like, I would say, like, you can call them as earned media. I call them making customer your ambassador. So and that becomes really important, because in the end you are not spending any money for them, and it's just magnifying your efforts.
I think so. This is a different way of thinking about viral media. Right?
Yeah.
When we say viral, we club absolutely everything in it, and anything that's shared and gets enough attention is called viral. But I think earned media is something that a lot of startups can look at. One of the things here that we do at WazirX is also, we have this community of crypto educators we call Wazir Warriors. Right now, with these people, they don't have a lot of following, so they are not influencers, but they still create and share content about cryptocurrencies. So we have a Telegram group of all these people, and we sort of reward them with different things. And that is the best thing, because we are not telling them what to create. So it's completely organic. The content that they're creating is not by us. It's not even sponsored content, but they still go out with our branding because they are loyal to us. We give them reach. So one of the things is community created content. I think is going to be big in terms of distribution, right?
Yeah. No, I think also I would say is like, sometimes we get lost in that, we need to make our content viral. We need to make sure that each and every campaign, goes on top of Twitter. I would say, like, maybe we should just flip that. Like, I personally feel that instead of thinking of virality, just think of making sure that everyone who is watching your video, or watching your video or reading your content, it's prompt to share that. That's all. Don't think about that you have to make it viral. Don't think about that you have to do a number of things and to make it viral. Just make sure that whoever is interacting with that content is gets an urge to share that with their friends and family. And you rightly pointed out that community can play a sort of very large role in that. That, let's say, you have formed a core community, like, who sort of trust your brand, who understands your brand, and like if they start sharing initially, that creates an effect in itself, where we and that creates that will create virality on itself. So you don't need to worry about virality if you are thinking about your customer and the community.
Right. I think one of the things that we miss is there is no consistency in virality.
Yes.
You may be creating content for a year and then one thing goes viral, but whereas it comes to these stable sources of distribution, channels of distribution, including community, probably it becomes much more consistent. Your message keeps going out to the same people again and again, and more chances of conversion, right?
So just
So,
on that quick topic, if I can interject there,
definitely,
Naveen and
please,
Ashutosh,
please.
on the topic of virality, this is something that's close to my heart.
Yes.
And I, for a piece of content which is being put out by a business, by a brand, I don't actually believe that something can go viral if you don't put any kind of paid marketing muscle in it. there needs to be that initial investment in paid marketing for that piece of content to get access to that critical mass of eyeballs.
Right.
After which, of course, if the content is inherently strong, the crowd can take over. Social media shares can take over, and earned media can take over. It's like a rocket which is looking to escape from Earth's gravitational pull. It needs to reach that escape velocity for it to run free. Right? In a very similar fashion, you do need that level of injection of paid marketing muscle, so it reaches that initial cohort of early adopters or that critical mass of users. After which, if it's good enough, it'll go. It'll truly go quote unquote viral. If you look at some of the examples of global viral phenomena, right? 7-8 years back, there was this Gangnam Style, right? That album went hugely viral, captured the imagination of the whole world. There is Kolaveri D, which was possibly the example of one of the first things that went truly viral in India around 7-8 years back when digital was and social media was exploding in the country, the build up to the previous general elections. So in both of these cases, I know for a fact that the marketing teams, the brains behind, who are actually the brains behind both of these viral initiatives, who are actually pulling the strings, they actually invested some level of money in either influencer marketing or in terms of seeding this content to various communities, not in traditional Facebook or Google advertisement, which overtly masquerade as ads, by intelligently seeding it in certain communities and certain networks, by paying money if needed, by intelligently leveraging influencers, macro influencers to market it. They managed to give it that critical mass of eyeballs, after which after once it got that required level of critical mass of eyeballs, they could pull off the oxygen supply of paid marketing because the crowd took over from that point. I just thought I'll quickly add.
This is amazing. See, ideally, I wish someone would have told me this, long back when I was starting out my marketing journey, because all marketers aim for is virality these days, and it's been there for a decade that everyone just aims for virality, but it's a myth. So let's probably break it for everyone today and say there is no virality with zero paid marketing, without any paid seeding. I think seeding is the right word without mention. Without this seeding, absolutely nothing goes viral. So I keep seeing trends on Twitter, and I realize that there is so much seeding going on in some community behind every trend on Twitter. And we can see that if we look at it carefully as marketers, we can see how it is, because a lot of tweets are just repeated. If you just copy the text and search it, you will realize so many people are doing this. And of course, these people are paid for. They are not doing it for free, right? There is some seeding required.
No, I think very rightly said. Like I would say that seeding is required, and I think that's also prompt us to don't think differently. Like it's not like paid versus organic. It's about that you want to reach a certain level, and then like what is the best way to reach a certain level.
That's true. I think we have some questions that we can take. We're just 13 minutes away, so let me just get some relevant questions that we have. I'm going to ignore a lot of industry-specific themes. One of the questions is there any playbook on what kind of content to be provided for every stage of customer journey? So I don't know if this is too much, but I think this is probably the most relevant question that I've got in the entire list right now. So throughout the customer, we've already talked about customer journey, right? So is there some kind of content that's relevant at every stage of customer journey, or have you seen any patterns, let's say in your own businesses? We could even take some example and explain it if it's too abstract. So
can I take that, Praveen?
Yeah, you would like to go first, Vidha?
Yeah, please. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So at Simply Run, for example, this is what we used to do. Let's say that Ashutosh comes in and signs up on the Simply Run website as a lead, and he's interested in learning, say, digital marketing, or he's interested in, say, learning data science or iOS programming, whatever it is. Let's assume it's digital marketing. He comes in and signs up, and he's looking to learn digital marketing. The first piece of content that would go out to Ashutosh as part of the life cycle of engaging and nurturing Ashutosh is the brand would say, "Congratulations, Ashutosh, on having taken your first step in your in your journey towards upskilling, reskilling yourself in digital." A few days after that, later on in the entire life cycle of engagement that Ashutosh is having with the brand, Ashutosh should get another email that says, "Ashutosh, here are some latest and greatest blogs from our Simply Run library, which talk about the latest and greatest happenings in the world of digital marketing." Right? A few days after that, 3-4 days after that, probably on T+10, 10 days after Ashutosh originally signed up, you would get another email which has testimonials of people exactly like Ashutosh, who have seen career advancement after having taken the Simply Learn course, for example, right? 3-4 days after that, Ashutosh would get an emailer inviting him to a webinar, just like this one, conducted by industry experts, quote unquote, right? Which will help Ashutosh to gain more credibility and trust towards the brand. A few days after that, possibly on day 18 or day 20, that would be the slam dunk where Ashutosh gets a 20% off discount code, which expires in 48 hours, right? And asking Ashutosh to go ahead and complete his purchase of the course. Now, this is a classic life cycle. It's called a drip engagement approach, right? That all brands adopt, right? It's called drip because you have these communications going on one after another, just like water dripping off a tap, one after another. So you've got all of these series of communications going out. Now, what we have done here is usually at Simply Learn, we know that our average sales life cycle is around 4 weeks, right? So around a month. So one of the best practices that I always recommend is make sure that your life cycle engagement approach, if your sales life cycle is X, you use that up for around 60 to 80% of that X. It's like a relay race where marketing carries the baton for 3/4 of the race and hands it off to sales for the last lap, for the home stretch. Right. So your engagement and nurtures campaigns should usually go on for around 60. It's not a perfect science. Around 3/4 of that journey, which is why you would set it till say day 20. There's no point if you're in Simply Learn when you know that on an average your prospects take 4 weeks to convert. If I send Ashutosh 5 emails in 2 days, he's going to mark me as spam and unsubscribe. Or if I send him 1 email every month, that again he's going to mark me as spam and unsubscribe. You would operate differently. For example, if you're in the B2B space, let's say you're Infosys and you sell to large enterprises, right? You sell to JP Morgan, you sell to Wells Fargo, these kinds of clients. These kinds of deals take months, years sometimes to conclude, right? 12 months, 18 months. That's going to be how long just the gestation cycle for these deals. The sales conversion cycle is going to be long. There, if you send 5 emails in 20 days, like in the Simply Learn case, it's of no use. So you've got to space out your content pieces and engage and nurture and handhold your audiences depending on how long your sales life cycle is. And accordingly, you know which stages what are the life cycle stages, and accordingly plan your content. Yeah, I hope that helps.
And that is amazing. I think this answers the question in a really great way.
Yes.
Ashutosh, you would like to take this?
No, I think plus one to what Veda said. I think that's a very nice way to think about it. One approach which sometimes I follow is like, and there is no one fit solution to all, but one thing which I follow is like, I think of customer's journey as in 4 bucket. Like you need to make your customer aware about the product or like about a field. Then you need to make sure that they are interested in that field, because there is a drop between awareness and interest. Okay. Right. Then the third step which I think about it, like you need to make sure that your customer starts desiring that thing. Right. Okay. And then obviously at the end you want them to take certain action. So I think this is one approach which I follow certain times, like that and I phase out my marketing accordingly, like and as Veda pointed out in the Simply Learn example, I can clearly see this fitting there also, that so I think so that's the way I would say we should think that maybe initially like make sure that the customer is aware, then after certain duration you make them interested. Right. Then sort of make sure that they start desiring your product. You distribute your content in such a way that they start desiring your product, and obviously in that you want them to take an action. And the distribution can differ a lot between industries and between the product you are selling. Right. So yeah,
I think that model also helps us seal the customer user journey. In the first stage, we can probably see whether the customer is even aware of our existence or not. As startups, that's where everyone starts, right? We are not unacademies of the world, but then still we have to go across the entire way up to action. So yeah, that sounds like a great wrap to this question. Let me take up one more question. I think we have 6 more minutes. It's hard to find because everyone has been very, very specific. So someone wants to understand what are the channels of inorganic marketing. I mean, if they absolutely don't have any budget, what are the different options that they can explore? Ashutosh, do you want to take this first and then I take it to Veda?
No, definitely. I think let's say, and I think all the startups face this problem. Like when you are starting up, you have to get some customers and you don't have money. I think so. From that perspective, I think we all start through organic medium. Like one thing which I would suggest is like that figure out which channels are really important for you. Okay. And that's very important, and make sure that you are developing sort of best content for those channels. Okay. And that sort of and I think and I would say list down, don't worry about the size of the channel. Sometimes what happens, I have seen people worrying that that let's say they want to do something on Facebook, they are not able to do because of they don't have money. Like I would suggest, don't worry, like at the start of that, don't worry about the size of the channel. Just make sure that whatever channels you are choosing, it is relevant to the core group which you are which is your customer. Okay. And then once you have decided on the core group, like sort of a core distribution channels which are important for your customer, and then you have developed the content. Okay. Then start sharing that. And one thing which you should definitely do is that, see, for every, like in these days, for every channel there are certain people who are popular on that channel. Okay. What I have realized is that reaching out to them doesn't hurt.
Right.
Yeah. So like, and I have done this during my startup days, is like when we don't have money to spend. So what I do is I decided that these are the 5 channels which I will focus on. Okay. And then I reach out to all the people who can help me in that, in distributing my content on those channels. Obviously, when you reach out to 100, you will get 10 replies. But even if 5 of them are ready to share your content because you have been able to build a rapport with them, I think that works.
Yeah.
Okay. And on top of that, what I would suggest that everyone should do is everyone should list down, all the distribution channels which they encounter on a day-to-day basis. Okay. So let's say, and this happens with me also, that all the top popular channels which we know about Google, we know about YouTube, we know about Facebook, Twitter, Medium, Quora. These are all the popular ones. But what we miss out is there are many smaller websites, there are many smaller newsletters which are quite popular with a certain group of segment. I would suggest that it's really important to get that exhaustive list initially, because many people don't do that. And one habit which I have formed is whenever I find a very interesting newsletter, I just note down who is sending me, who is the distributor of that.
Right.
So it's important that you start thinking about those smaller channels as well.
I mean, that sounds great. In terms of inorganic, we usually look at SEO and stuff, and of course social sharing goes without saying. I don't think we even need to talk about that, but this is an interesting option as well. Veda, do you want to take this question?
Yeah, in terms of organic efforts which go beyond paid, I think multiple things come to mind. I think one of them is, of course, making sure that you focus on search engine optimization. You create content which is being searched for. If you're operating in a niche space, like I mentioned earlier, even if it is not allied to your business, if it is miscellaneous, slightly neighboring to your business, you still create content around that, like in the Razorpay example, where we create content not just related to payments, but also related to entrepreneurship overall. That is certainly one, but SEO is something which is more of a medium long-term play. You need to have patience. You need to invest in it over a period of time. You need to be very clear that it's going to take a while for you to succeed. Having said that, even if you're focusing on SEO, make sure that you pick your battles. I'm a big believer in doing lesser number of things really well rather than trying to do too many things and doing a mediocre job of it. So given that as a startup and as a startup founder, your resources are limited, your time is limited, your money is limited, people resources are limited. What I would do is I would focus on those keywords which have some level of search demand volume, but where my ranking difficulty is not too high. So if I go after core keywords, for example, which have extremely high search demand volumes, there would already be a lot of well-entrenched players who would already be ranking on page 1 for those. It's very difficult. It's going to be very difficult for you to dislodge them as a completely new entrant in the space or a completely unknown brand with limited domain authority in the eyes of Google. So what I would do is I would focus on those keywords, and you have enough and more SEO tools, right? SEMrush, Ahrefs, Uber suggests so many different tools. Use any of these tools and figure out which are those keywords which have, even if it is not extremely high keyword demand, lower keyword demand, but where you have a chance of ranking on page 1 in 6, 9, 12 months. So pick those keywords, pick your battles. And of course, the second one is on earned media creation. Create content which people would love to share, people would love to reshare, right? That is something that you always need to focus on. For example, if you have a Facebook page with 100 followers, you make a piece of content which 50 of them end up resharing, and each of them have 100 followers each. Without spending a single rupee in marketing, you got exposure to 50 multiplied by 100, 5,000 eyeballs. So do that. The third piece, which is often underutilized, is PR. Try to see if you can network well with people in media. To begin with, it's going to be a slow climb. Media will not take you seriously, but you've got to invest in that. You keep networking, keep trying, and look at how can you add value to the media person's life instead of trying to look at it as a sales conversation. Try to provide interesting pieces of content and get a conversation going and nurture that relationship over a period of time. So these should be my 3 mantras.
That's amazing.
Just I would add on a +1 to what Veda said, that whenever you are thinking about any PR activity or any content generation activity, just don't think about yourself, think about the other person as well.
Right.
It has to be a mutual relationship, and I think, like very rightly said Veda, that is really important. And many of us have sort of missed this this nuance and have done mistake in past.
So I think that also ties back to Veda's point earlier, that you got to understand who your audience is and then take all the decisions, right? So I think we are right on time, maybe 1 minute. Do we have some time, Shankar?
Yeah, I think, yes, Parin, we can do that, no problem. Yeah.
Right, maybe one more question.
Yeah. We can take direct questions as well, Parin, from Ashish, Dheeraj. They have raised the hand. Whatever you feel like, it's good to go.
Yes, let me just take. I think 7 people have asked some questions here in the Q&A section. There was one interesting question here as well. How can you provide some content marketing tips for B2B SaaS companies? I think a lot of people these days are building B2B SaaS, right? I think Veda, this is right up your alley, right? B2B SaaS content tips.
B2B SaaS content tips again. Again, I think it checks off. If you're in the B2B space, in all likelihood, you are in a niche space. So you need to make sure that you follow some of the playbooks that I mentioned earlier. Freshworks, when it started off back then, it was fairly in a niche space. It expanded its market by looking beyond India. So it depends on what your target market is. So you could look to expand your, make sure that the content you create will be relevant for a large audience set. Now you can do that in a couple of different ways. One is the Freshworks way, wherein they expanded the scope of their market. They said my sandbox is not just India, it's the entire world. So that made the catchment area really large. The Razorpay way has been different, where our focus has been India, but we expanded our keyword pool. He said within India, we're going to focus not just on payments, but on entrepreneurship overall. So I think that is something for you to focus on. Create content which is informational, because if you're selling IT SaaS products, in a lot of cases, you're selling it to companies which have some level of IT literacy, which have some level of digital literacy as well. Or either it's a stated need or a latent need. So make sure that you speak to those needs and need states. You're able to help them bridge that trust divide, provide, which is informative, adds value to them, and positions you as an authoritative player in the space, which is extremely important. Not just salesy content. I think that is something that I would certainly recommend.
Ashutosh, would you like to take this up as well? B2B SaaS content tips?
No, I think what Veda said is like I would say it covers all the important point. And I think and I just highlight one thing is that, when you are selling to B2B companies, 2 things which we need to always keep in mind, that scrutiny will be larger than a B2C sell. Okay, that there will be multiple players who will scrutinize and who will be part of that discussion, part of the decision funnel. Okay, so in that way, it's important that you are creating content for all that decision funnel. And then the second point, that it's not about salesy content, it's about being helpful to customers. So I think I would just emphasize on those 2 points, but it's really important.
Yeah, from B2B perspective, I think it is important to understand who are the decision makers. Usually, if it's a expensive product, generally there are many decision makers. So I think content needs to be created for all of them. That was a great point. So I think we are already 5 minutes over. Shankar, you want to take over and wrap this up?
Thank you, Parin. Thank you, Parin, for this wonderful moderating the session. Thank you so very much. I would also like to say thanks to Mr. Ashutosh and Mr. Veda for their wonderful comments, wonderful remarks on the digital marketing space. I'm sure the participants, we got a good number of participants this time as well. So I'm sure it has though it's on the macro level, it would have cleared many of the doubts, many of the remarks. We got flooded. In fact, we are flooded with so many questions that we are unable to take it. So, my sincere apologies to all the attendees. We are sure you can share your questions to the email ID been shared in the chat box. We definitely look forward to have many more such sessions. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Shankar, I think
Yeah.
Mansi just messaged me saying share your profile so people know how they can reach us if they want to. So I don't know if you have profiles.
Yes, what I can do is I can share, the LinkedIn profiles of yours, so they can directly get in touch with them. And of course, we can have, once we are done with this, we are going to tag all of you in the snapshot what we take, and then probably we can take the discussion there.
Sure. Okay.
And to all the attendees, we would appreciate if at all you can give us your valuable feedback. The feedback screen is going to appear as soon as we close the webinar. Please do share your feedback. It really definitely matters to all of us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us today.